Hello world, Shelly here, and today we are going to take a look at the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Stencil Kit. If you have as much trouble freehanding your brows as I do, these might just be the savior for you. I was inspired to take a look at these after I saw them on Thetaela's channel. I will link her down below. She was comparing them to cheaper Amazon eyebrow stencils, and of course these turned out to be better, so I decided to take a look at them, and I really like them, so I would like to share them with you guys. Now, I'm looking at Sephora's website, and these retail for $20. They get a rating of 3.4 stars out of 5 with 522 reviews. Now, that doesn't seem super great, and as I went through the reviews, it looks like most of the complaints about these stencils are that they are too hard to use or too big. Now let me address the second problem there. These stencils, there's 5 in the kit. You get a petite arch, a slim high arch, and then a high, medium, and full arch. Now, I'm going to show you all of them, but the idea behind these is not that you get 5 different ways to do your own brows. The idea is that one of these stencils will be the appropriate stencil for your eye shape. So it's not that you get 5 different versions of your brows, it's that one of these should work for you. With the issue of them being hard to use, I mean, I disagree. I do wish I was an octopus and had a few extra arms, and that would make it easier to use, but I wouldn't call them hard to use. They're a little awkward to use, but so are any stencil that you're trying to put on your face. So I don't find that to be an accurate claim. But yeah, I don't lay too much credibility to that particular complaint. So let's take a look at the shapes of the stencils that they provide. So the first one they give you is the petite arch. Now these are made of plastic. It's pretty durable, but it is flexible. It's not sticky at all. And the petite arch looks like this. Here is the slim high arch, the medium arch, the high arch, and the full arch. You receive one stencil for each size, and the idea is you would put it on one eyebrow and then flip it over and put it on the other eyebrow. Now, I've done these both before and after applying my foundation, and if you do the brows after your foundation, you are going to pick up some of your foundation on the stencil, and then you'll probably have to touch up your foundation around your eyebrows. But I have such a hard time when I put my foundation on, I usually get it all in my eyebrows, and so the process of doing my eyebrows is also a process of cleaning up the foundation that I got into my eyebrows. So I just take my chances. I do my foundation first. Now today I cleaned off my eyebrows, so I'm actually missing foundation around my eyebrows because this is later in the day and I took off the brow powder I had on to do this video. So we won't have much of that problem now, but you may have it if you do your brows after your foundation, FYI. These work with any brow powder that you like. I do like the Anastasia Beverly Hills. I'm going to use this in dark brown. This is the Brow Powder Duo. And before we get into the actual stencil, there is a process to figure out where the best placement of your brow arch is. And you can use any brush. I've got a Sedona Lace brush. It's the EB17. It's got a spoolie on one side of the brush and just an angled brush on the other. And the idea is that from the inner part of your nostril to the inside corner of your eye is where your brow should begin. Then the inside part of your nostril to the outer corner of your eye is where your brow should end. And then the tip of your nose to the center of your iris is where you should have the highest point of your arch. And you can use a brush and a little bit of powder to sort of figure that out. So I'm going to go from the middle of my nostril, corner of my eye. That puts the end of my brow right here. And I just put a little dot there. From the inside of my nostril through the inner corner of my eye, luckily, my brows start pretty much at the right spot. And from the tip of my nose to the center of my iris is difficult. There we go. Is about right there. Now each of these stencils has 3 different markings on them. The first being at the center, where you would line that up with the center end of your eyebrow. The second being the end where you marked the end of your brow. And the third being the highest point of the arch where the bridge is. And so you don't have to draw those spots on your face every time you do this, but the first couple times you might want to, just to get an idea of how to line this up. Now they've got the top darker. You want to keep that parallel with the ground so that your brows are straight. That assumes your head is straight. If you've got your head tilted, well, you're in trouble. So keep your head straight when you are doing this. Now this exercise showed me that this eyebrow is shorter than it should be. This one goes out as far as it should, but this one is quite a bit shorter. And I really didn't notice that until I started using these stencils that, oh my, this one really is shorter than it should be. So you might discover some things. Now I'm going to switch to my granite color, which is darker. It'll be a little bit easier for you guys to see what is happening on my brows. So the first step is to figure out which stencils are going to work for you. And you can kind of just do that by lining up with the points you made on your eyes. Now, this is the slim high arch. It is a little too big. This is the petite arch. And this looks just about right. So in my eyebrow land, petite arch is pretty much what I've naturally got. I can get away with slim high arch if I want a more dramatic brow, and you can do that, and I will show you guys how. But first let's do the one that works best for my eyes. So I like to come in from below to kind of get it lined up to my underside of my brow, under my brow hairs. Get the brow hairs in there because it just makes it a little bit easier. There we go. Nope, moved it. Now I'm not going to take it quite as far out as it recommends because it's a little too long for me. I'm going to stop where I think mine should, where I marked off, and then I will just clean it up afterwards. So you go in with the powder and just fill in. I like to use a lighter hand in the front. Remove the stencil. And you see how it filled in up here? Now we can go in and be a little more precise and clean up as necessary. I like to use the lighter shade toward the front. Now there is a gap, the sort of bridge of the stencil, and you generally have to fill that in. See this piece of plastic in the middle? You probably can't see it, but there's a little piece of plastic right here where the high part of your arch is, and that is partly a guide. Now, even though it can be a little annoying to have to fill it in, part of the reason it's there is because if you do have brows, you want to use a larger stencil, it's too big for your brows. You can fill it in part way and then move the stencil back to the point where you filled it in part way and keep going. And that just makes it a little helpful having that bridge there. But you do have to go back and fill in the gap where the bridge did not place any color. Once you've got it filled in, you can go in with your brow gel, your whatever you like to do to set it, if you like to use pomade, and you've got yourself a lovely brow. So this would be the most natural brow for me. Now, what if I wanted something a little more dramatic? We've already seen that the slim high arch is a little bit too big for my face. But let's see what happens when we try to use it. Let me zoom you guys in a little bit. There we go, zoomed in. Now let's take a look at a slightly more dramatic brow on me. This would not be what would naturally fit me the best, but if I do want to exaggerate my brows a bit, here's how we'd go. So first off, I'm just gonna double check that, you know, my natural brow goes about where it's supposed to in terms of how far it should go. Same with where it starts, and the highest point should be right about there. I'm not gonna draw those points in, but for reference, we know that this brow behaves a little bit better than the other. Now this is the slim high arch, so I'm going to go in and line this up, and as you can see, it is far too big for my eyes. And that, you know, if I used it as it should be, my brow would come all the way out to here. So this is not the brow stencil for me, but we can kind of fake it a little bit. If I want to be a little more dramatic, I'm going to start it a little farther in toward my nose and try to get that arch lined up with where it should go. You know, the high point of my arch, that third spot. And just get my brows in here as much as possible. And I'm not going to go all the way to the end where it recommends, but I'm going to use as much of this stencil as I can. So I'm going to get my powder. And I'm filling in just to the edge of my natural brow, because that is the proper length. So we will remove the stencil, and now we're going to clean up. So you can see that gap where the bridge in the stencil is. Let's fill that in. Now, since I'm faking so much of this top part of my brow, I do have to be pretty heavy-handed with it so it looks like the same color as my natural hair. My natural brows are pretty dark, so to pull this off, you really do have to have a pretty good color match with your brow powder. And then for the front, I'll use the lighter color of brow powder. Now, the one thing I love about doing the high arch, do you see how the illusion of how much more space is visible? I have hooded eyelids, and while it's not going to change the fact that they are hooded, look at the illusion of how much lid space I've got. Look at all this sort of imaginary space that I have, because it didn't change. The same amount of space is there, but when I do the higher arch, it really does lift the eye. So let me make no facial expression. You see how this one just looks higher? It just looks higher. And yeah, it's a slightly more dramatic brow, and I would have to use some brow gel to make sure that my eyebrow hairs did not dip down into their regular location, because then it looks really obvious that I did my brows. But you can clean these up with concealer and get that fine point if you would like. I probably would leave it just like this, because I like to brush my brow hairs up, and so they kind of wisp over the shadow I created with the powder, and I would gel them into place just like so. There you have it, my natural brow and a more dramatic brow with the Anastasia Beverly Hills classic brow stencils. Have you guys tried these out? Have you ever done brow stencils? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories, and if you know of any cheaper ones that work just as well as the ABH. Thanks a lot for taking some time out of your day to geek out over makeup with me. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys all have an awesome day or night wherever you are in the world. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.